Okay, welcome back to another GR8 podcast. I'm really excited to get into this one, mostly because I just found out that GR8 it spells out great, so I should be saying the Great Podcast. Huh? I never thought about that one, but I might as well be calling it the Great Podcast. Still gonna call it the GR8 Podcast because I think that's funnier. But today we are getting into the NBA All-Star Weekend. It's kind of a review, kind of an overview about like the whole thing and all the media and all the changes. And I really want to focus on the changes. And I know I'm in my bedroom in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm speaking out against a multi-billion-dollar company about how they change a weekend of events that they clearly just do not care about. So it doesn't matter what I say. It clearly does not matter what I say. It doesn't matter what is going on in this podcast in the grand scheme of things. But nonetheless, I'd really like to talk about my sort of ideas and thoughts about what could potentially happen to the NBA if they were to implement some of the ideas and changes that I have up in my head. So NBA All-Star Weekend starts on Friday and then goes until Sunday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. It's actually pretty interesting. It's actually pretty fun. NBA All-Star Weekend, I thought, has always been pretty fun because I always thought the NBA was a fun league. The NFL, maybe I'm gonna compare it to the NFL's Pro Bowl. They only have like the Pro Bowl, and it's like one day, like on a Sunday, and it's pretty much like all day, like that afternoon. And I really don't know how they did it like this year in 2024, but they have the game. Obviously, they have the Pro Bowl game, and it's flag football. And then they have like other skills where you throw the ball and, different accuracy type things for different quarterbacks and different positions and things of that nature. But the NBA has something a little bit different where they have Friday night, and it's like the Rising Stars Challenge, and it's like the rookies play against each other or something along those lines. I don't know. I didn't watch it. And then Saturday night gets a little bit more interesting where they have the Skills Challenge, where they have different teams and they try to pass the ball, they try to score the ball, they try to dunk the ball, and things of that nature, and different like obstacle course on the court. And then they have the 3-point shootout, which is always pretty interesting, and it's like pretty tried and true. Like, whoever wins is probably the best shooter that is in the competition. And then they have the dunk contest, where a couple people from the NBA, a couple people from the G League, come up and put on a dunk contest. And then this past year, in 2024, obviously they had the Steph versus Sabrina challenge or competition of 3-point shootout, and that was pretty interesting. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad that happened. That was a pretty good success. And then Sunday night they have the actual All-Star game, where it starts at like 8:45. It's supposed to start at 8, but it starts at 8:45, and then they play until like 11 or whatever until the game is over. There's hardly any fouls. There's hardly any defense. It's just all offense, and it's just supposed to be fun. And I think that's like the main idea for the NBA. Like, this is just a fun league until you start getting serious in like in like March, April, May. All the bad teams are, doesn't matter, and then all the good teams are actually competing, and that's where like the fun is. You actually watch the competing teams, right? And then All-Star Weekend is kind of like, it's supposed to be like in the middle point of the season, but it's really like kind of like 75% of the way through the season, maybe like 60%. And what it's supposed to do is just show off, the NBA players. It's supposed to give them a break because it starts like Friday, right? And then no teams play until the next Thursday. So it's an actual break that the NBA All-Stars and NBA, the whole league gets until obviously the games come back on Thursday. But it's a nice little refresher and a nice little reflective back on like the season as a whole so far, and then now they're going forward with the rest of the season where the competition actually ramps up. So that's like pretty much the general overview of the NBA All-Star Weekend. The ideas about the Rising Stars game and Rising Stars Challenge, I don't care. do whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. Now I do have a couple ideas with the skills challenge, and well, at least stuff that happens Saturday is Sunday night. So the skills challenge I like. However, I think they should get rid of teams. They have teams where like their collective points are like totaled up and then like competing against other teams. I don't necessarily enjoy that. I think that like if you're a bad NBA player and you get put on like a pretty good team, then you can pretty like much hide in like the skills challenge. That's how I feel like the skills challenge is like could be a little bit different where they just have individual talent going through these obstacle courses and seeing how fast they could do it, like dribbling in and out of like cones or whatever, passing the ball on accuracy and then running back down the court for a layup or a dunk or something. That could be like really cool to watch. That could be really cool to see individual players compete. And I know they used to do that, and then they added teams, which is a pretty interesting idea where like you have team Pacers and then team number one pick and then team, All-Star or something like that. I think that's what they did in 2024. But still the principle still stands where I think that individual talent should be matched up against individual talent. Moving into the 3-point shootout, 3-point challenge, whatever you want to call it. Um, Dude, I don't know. This is a pretty, there's no issues. This is just straight up. You have a good time limit. You have a good like racks. You can get to choose where the money ball goes, money ball rack goes. Like it's pretty perfect what they have going on so far. I think they have a little bit too many players in the 3-point shootout. I think they have like 6, 7, or 8. I think it really should be like 4 or 5 or something like that, because you don't really like get like one player from each position or something. I don't know, because it just when you start getting into like the 8 spot, like who do you just have? You could just have like just a normal ordinary NBA player, and maybe that could be cool. Maybe that would be like a pretty good idea. Like competing like I don't know I don't know, the MVP ladder number 1 versus MVP ladder number 40 or something along those lines. I'm not exactly too sure, but the 3-point shootout, I don't think needs a whole lot of change. There's probably a little bit less players actually shooting the basketball on that event. I think something like that would be pretty cool. I really like the Steph and Sabrina sort of idea. I like how the NBA incorporates the WNBA because they're like the same thing, you know? I really like that. And I really like Sabrina Ionescu, or however you say your last name, like said, like, no, I want to shoot from the 3-point line. I want to shoot from the NBA 3-point line. I want to make it fair, and I want to do this. Even if I win, even if I lose, it doesn't matter. I'm still there competing in the All-Star game. And I think any other WNBA player would have said, yes, absolutely. But it's nice that they asked like a really good 3-point shooter in the WNBA, and she said, sure, absolutely, let's do it. And then she was like competitive about it. I think that's really cool. So that was a pretty big success for the WNBA, and that was a pretty big success for the NBA. And then here comes the dunk contest, where it has been so lackluster in the last several years, ever since 2016 with Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, which, by the way, Zach LaVine won that thing fair and square. There's not a whole lot you could do without fundamentally changing the dunk contest. I think that there should be more dunkers in the dunk contest and maybe even less NBA players. Because if your product is to celebrate dunking, if the thing that you're trying to show off is people dunking and people doing amazing things and amazing feats, get people that can actually dunk the basketball. Stop getting clowns to come on through and just dunk the basketball, like Jaylen Brown. Who thought it was a good idea to get Jaylen Brown in the dunk contest? I don't understand. And then Mac McClung obviously has been dunking since high school. We've been seeing his his mixtapes since high school, and he's been dunking the ball like crazy all the time. And he won last year's and he won this year's. And it's funny because like there's no competitive nature about anybody. Like they just don't care that a G leaguer is beating everybody. Like, I think that's what it really comes down to, especially Sunday night. Like, it's actually actual competitiveness, and it's hard to innate and instill competitiveness in a weekend, in a competition, in an event that the NBA even like inherently does not care about. Like, they try so many different things, they change so many different ideas, they have so many, like, I guess that really wouldn't make sense. If you're trying to change something and make it better, that would mean that you care about it. But I don't think the NBA really cares about the that the All-Star game or the All-Star weekend. I really don't think they care. Nonetheless, the dunker championship or the dunk contest or whatever, I think that you should get one G League, one guy that, like, I think there's a guy on Instagram. His name is Jordan Kingston or something along those lines. He's an insane dunker, and if you just get him like in the dunk contest or something like that, I don't know. Get like the best player, get like LeBron. And I know he probably said somewhere that he never wants to do it, or or something along those lines. Maybe get like a short NBA player, get Steph in the dunk contest and see like what he can do. Stop getting like Jacob Toppin. No one knows who that is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who that. They don't care. Get superstars. Offer them a lot of money and see what they can do. I think there was one NBA player. I can't remember who it was, but they offered get the top four players that have the top four verticals in the dunk contest. And that could be very interesting. Maybe have the G Leaguer, Mac McClung, maybe have a superstar like LeBron or Steph, and then have a player that has the most that has the highest vertical, and get him in the dunk contest, and then get like another dunker that somebody could care about, or maybe that's where you throw in a Jacob Toppin. Instead of having all Jacob Toppins, you just have one where nobody really knows his name, and he could be actually a pretty good player, but we'll just throw him in there maybe to get some recognition or something. I think NBA All-Star Weekend is a good way to like show off the NBA, but not only show off NBA, but show off just basketball in general. So I think that would be a pretty cool idea to just have different people, maybe even people that like they already took somebody from the G League. Obviously, the G League is affiliated with the NBA, but how hard could it be to get this Jordan Kingston guy that I'm talking about on Instagram to come by, throw him like I don't know, a quarter mil, and say, here you go, let's let's start dunking, or something like that. I'm not exactly too sure, but it desperately needs a revamp, and it desperately needs competition. And I don't know what's stopping them from trying to get Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine back in the dunk contest. Say like, all right, we're gonna have a rematch of 2016 dunk contest. I think they try to do it again in like 2020 or something. I'm not exactly too sure, but I don't know. Bring them back or something. Have Mac McClung in there too. Have like the best dunks possible. I don't know. That's just like a sort of idea I'm kind of spitballing here. And then Sunday night, you have the All-Star game. And there is nothing inherently good about the All-Star game in its current state. I think it's fun to see the best players in the world just throw up lobs to each other and dunk the basketball or something, or Karl Anthony Towns scoring 50. Like, who cares? Who cares that Karl Anthony Towns scored 50 in an All-Star game? Like, no one inherently cares. People could care about like a real game because that's real competition. Something's actually happening. But when nobody's playing defense, when nothing's real happening in the All-Star game, why would somebody care about how many points somebody's getting? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't count towards anything. I think what they should do is, I don't even know. I have so many ideas, but they all just like have so many logical fallacies about them. It doesn't even make sense. Like, there's one that like incentivize them with money. You don't really need to incentivize LeBron James with money. He's a billionaire. You can't offer him some $5 and a chicken sandwich and say, all right, come on, let's play some basketball. Like, no. I think there's also a sort of idea of like they don't want to get injured in a game that doesn't matter, so they're not going to try super hard, and that's again pretty tough. I think Kobe Bryant. It's actually like a little interview that he had before he died, and it was talking about the All Star game. And it's been swirling around the internet ever since the All Star game, where he was talking about the players try harder in a UCLA pickup game than they do in the All Star game, and I could not agree more. But I think there's something more about, like, could you just make it about basketball again? Could you just make the I don't know, could you just make it about basketball again? Could you make the NBA All-Star game about basketball? Could you make the NBA about like basketball again, instead of adding the in-season tournament, instead of adding the play-in tournament, instead of adding all these different things, instead of having like an LED screen as the court to play on or something along those lines, instead of having NBA TV not cover all of the things going on, instead of just having it on like one channel or something along. I'm not exactly too sure. Instead of like gatekeeping your best ideas, why don't you just put all your best ideas, put all your tips forward for every single All-Star weekend? That doesn't really make sense to me, like why they don't do that. You know, why don't they, I don't know. There's another idea where if you're in the West and you lost, right? Or no, if you were in the West and you won, you in the playoffs, your entire conference, or I really don't know, would have home court advantage in the playoffs. That's a pretty interesting idea and something that they could work for. But then what's the point of the regular season? That's the whole point of the regular season. I think the more ideas that you have about trying to make something that's inherently just fun, more competition, then it doesn't matter. I think that it boils down to simple competition. The NBA championship is obviously what everybody's reaching for. That next ring, that next Larry O'Brien trophy is what everybody wants and everybody in the NBA wants. That's the main goal, right? That's the main title. That's the main idea, right? That's what the whole point of the NBA is. But when you start getting into this idea where, oh, I lost, but there always will be next year where we can try again. I mean, obviously you have to go through an entire grueling 6 months, 9 months process of trying to get the NBA again, the NBA Larry O'Brien trophy again, another ring again. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but it will always be like you can just get it again. So it's simple competition, and it just boils all the way down to the All-Star game where they just don't care. And I think it's okay that they don't care. I simply think that it's okay that the East scores over 200 points in an All-Star game. If it's offense is what you want, if scoring the basketball is what you want, then this is a perfect All-Star game for you, right? Karl-Anthony Towns scoring 50 points. That's something that you probably want as like a casual NBA fan, seeing the basketball being scored or something along those lines. Now when you start getting into like what's wrong with it, something needs to change. It's like, okay, what possibly could change without changing the player's mentality? What possibly could you change without lobotomizing all of the NBA players and saying you have to compete in this thing to drive in ratings? Do people like, are people just out and about on a Sunday night doing whatever, and then they get a notification on their phone, and what's the notification going to be? Breaking: NBA All-Star game gets competitive. What possibly could you want to happen when this stuff comes to, what do you have to do about the All-Star game? Could you like dim the lights? Could you have less people in the stadium? Could you have it less of an event and more of a fun sort of idea? I really like the idea that it was a pickup game where you legitimately, there's captains and they pick their players and whatever. I think something like that could be cool. But I also like the idea of East versus West and what's the better conference, what has the better players, who has the players that are actually going to try. The NBA All-Star, this is me. This is just like me spitballing here. This is me just talking. I love coming up with ideas and changes and concepts to implement into the NBA to make it better. I my thoughts will never be implemented. So it doesn't really matter. But that doesn't mean I can't try. That doesn't mean I can't have fun. That doesn't mean I can't be imaginative. And I'm sorry if this podcast wasn't super imaginative. It was just a lot of like my thoughts about the NBA All-Star Weekend and how, yes, there's problems, but I think really comes down to is competitiveness. And if you can't make people be competitive about something that they already are getting paid for, would already be getting a title for, and would already be, be cementing their legacy, then it really doesn't matter, if that like this is just a stepping stone, and the Larry O'Brien trophy will just become obsolete because the NBA players just do not care. Is this what happens when you pay them so much money? Is this what happens when you pay them millions of dollars? I don't know. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for listening, watching, having fun with me, talking about the NBA All-Star game and All-Star Weekend and different things and different ideas and concepts that go into the NBA and basketball as a whole. I appreciate you guys sticking around with me, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video or podcast episode. See ya.